Hello all, welcome. This is Kastro Kiran. In this video, we are going to talk about a tool which is known as Artifact Repository Tool, especially the Nexus. So as a part of this video, I'll be talking about a brief introduction towards Nexus. What is Nexus? How Nexus is going to help us in order to store the artifacts that are generated by various other tools. And also, we are practically going to see how to integrate Jenkins with Nexus and how to push the artifacts that are generated by the Jenkins pipeline. And then we'll be accessing the Nexus where we are going to see the artifacts that are generated by a Maven project or the Maven tool. Nexus repository is a powerful tool which is used in DevOps, which is used in DevOps for managing and storing the software components, for managing and storing the software components and its dependencies. If you want to store the dependencies which are required for a project, we can use Nexus. This is the typical definition of what is Nexus. So Nexus repository is a powerful tool that is used in DevOps in order to manage and store the software components and also the dependencies. Let us have an idea about a couple of other repository tools. Suppose, let's say, if you want to store the source code of the application. Okay, if you want to store the source code of the application, we have different tools that are available in the market. So the commonly used tools are GitHub is one such tool, GitLab is another tool. In AWS, we have a service which is known as Code Commit. So these are the different tools that are available in order to store the source code of the application. Similarly, if you want to store the Docker images, okay, if you want to store the Docker images, we have a Docker Hub or Docker Registry. Okay, we have Docker Hub or Docker Registry, and we also have ECR in AWS, Elastic Container Registry. In Maven, okay, when we are working with Maven, in Maven, we are going to do a couple of activities such as compilation, packaging, all those things. Suppose, let's say the project is a Java-based project. So when we are using a Java-based project, we will also use the Maven tool. So Maven is basically a build tool. So what we are going to build in the Maven, we are going to build the artifacts. Okay, using Maven, we are going to build the artifacts. What are the artifacts means? Artifacts such as jar or war files. Artifacts such as jar or war files. So the full form of jar is Java archive and the full form of war is web archive. Now, I want to store these jar or war files. Okay, I want to store these jar or war files. These are called as artifacts. So whatever the artifacts that are generated by the Maven, that is jar or war files, I want to store in a separate place. In order to store the artifacts which are generated by the Maven, we have some tools which are known as artifact repository tools. Okay, artifact repository tools. So what are some of the artifact repository tools that are available? The first one, which is known as Nexus. Nexus is one of the artifact repository tools. Along with Nexus, JFrog is also one of the repository tools which is used to store the artifacts. So here, by using Nexus and JFrog, we can store the artifacts which are generated by the build tool, which is known as Maven. Key points of Nexus. So the very first point is Nexus supports the storage of various types of artifacts. So you can call this as an component storage. So what it is going to store, it is going to help us to store the artifacts which are generated by the Java, such as jar files, npm packages. Along with jar files and npm packages, we can also store the Docker images in the Nexus repository. That's the first one, which is called as component storage. And the second key point of Nexus is it is basically a centralized repository. Okay, it is basically a centralized repository. What does it mean by centralized repository? Nexus can act as a single source of point in order to manage and access the dependencies for various projects and the different teams working for a project. That's another key point of working with Nexus. And the other advantage of working with Nexus is it provides better security features. Okay, it provides better security features. So how Nexus is going to provide the security features? It provides fine-grained access control and auditing and security scanning if there are any vulnerabilities in the stored components. That's how the security features will be enabled for the Nexus repository. Along with that, by using Nexus, we can integrate with different CI and CD tools such as Jenkins. So it is going to help us in order to integrate with other DevOps tools. Okay, with other DevOps tools, especially the Jenkins. So if you want to work with Nexus, you can integrate directly with the Jenkins pipeline and you can work with it. As a part of this demo, I am going to show you how to integrate Jenkins with Nexus. Okay, how to integrate Jenkins with Nexus, where I am going to write a pipeline here. Okay, I'm going to write a pipeline script here. And there, first I will launch one instance, and then I'm going to install Jenkins inside that instance. And then I'm going to work with the Nexus. By using this Jenkins pipeline, what I will do is whatever the Nexus repository that I have set up, I will push the artifacts to that Nexus repository. This is what we are going to see as a part of this video. I'm going to integrate Jenkins with Nexus, and I will show you how to access the Nexus repository and how to access the artifacts that are stored inside the Nexus repository. So this is about a brief overview on Nexus concept. So I hope you understood what is meant by Nexus, what are the key points that are available in the Nexus, and as a part of this demo, what exactly I am going to show you. I have already prepared an in-detailed notes about how to set up the Jenkins, how to set up the Nexus repository, and how to create the pipeline. Each and every step I have already provided in the notes with step-by-step process, starting from launching the instance and accessing the artifacts in the Jenkins repository. Till that stage, I have created a detailed notes. I'll be providing that notes in the GitHub repository also. The repository link will be provided at the description of this particular video. Let me show you what are the things that I am going to do as a part of this demo. So there are 8 different steps which I have included. So by following this documentation, we are going to parallelly work with each and every step. And I will also practically show you how to work with Nexus. So as I mentioned earlier, here in this demo, I'm going to show you how to set up Nexus and Jenkins by using the Jenkins pipeline. So firstly, as a first step, I am going to launch one Ubuntu instance with 24.04 as the version, and I'm going to select a t2.large. Instead of going with t2.micro, I'm going with t2.large because Nexus needs some additional storage capacity. So for that, I'm going to go with t2.large. Make sure once after your practice is completed, you are going to terminate the instance or make sure to stop the instance in order to avoid the billing. Right. So let me go to the AWS console and let me launch one EC2 Ubuntu based instance. So here currently I'm there in the AWS console, especially the EC2 service. So I'm just clicking on launch instance. Once I click on launch instance, I'm going to give the name of the instance as Nexus Demo. Nexus Demo by Kastro. And then the application and OS image, as I said, I am going with Ubuntu. If you want, you can go with Amazon Linux-based EC2 instance also. But as a part of this demo, I'm going with Ubuntu instance and AMI version, which I'm using is 24.04. This is the version that I'm currently using. And if you scroll down, we can select the instance type as t2.large. So just click on this one and then select the instance as t2.large. So the reason why I'm selecting this t2.large is it is going to support the Nexus and Nexus needs some extra storage capacity. So for that reason, I'm going to select t2.large. And key pair, if you have already have the key pair, you can select the key pair from this dropdown. I will be selecting the existing key pair. If you don't have a key pair, you can click on create new key pair and you can use that particular key pair in order to connect to the instance. And then network settings, I'm not going to change any of the network settings. Here in the notes, I have given some port numbers to be open. If you want, you can open. Otherwise, it's completely optional. I'll show you how to open the port numbers wherever the requirement comes with. And here, I'm not changing any of the security groups or the network settings. I'm just going with the default one. And storage capacity, I'll be going with the 20 GB of storage capacity, or you can also go with 25 GB also, since we need some extra storage capacity. And the number of instances I need is only one instance. So let me click on launch instance. So with this, we will be able to launch the instance which is required in order to work with the Nexus. And once we launch the EC2 instance, I'm going to connect to that EC2 instance. So in order to connect to the EC2 instance, I'm going to use a tool which is known as MobiXterm software. So in the MobiXterm software, first go to session. In the session, go to SSH. In the place of remote host, we have to paste the public IP address of the instance. So let me go here and check whether instance is getting launched or not. You can see the instance is still launching. Yeah. So the instance is ready now. Once the instance is ready, we can copy the public IPv4 address of the EC2 instance in order to connect to that instance using the MobiXterm terminal. Select the instance and then copy the public IP address of the instance by going to the details section. So copy the public IP address, go to the MobiXterm, place the remote host, and for any Ubuntu-based instances, the username is Ubuntu. So just give the username as Ubuntu. Advanced SSH settings, use private key, and then click on the file icon to select the key pair file. So I have selected the key pair file, which is available from the downloads of this particular laptop. So just click on OK so that you will be connected to the EC2 instance, which is of Ubuntu based. Right. You can see currently I have connected to the EC2 instance. Let me clear the screen first. And if you do who am I, you can see I'm the Ubuntu user. And if you do PWD, I'm currently there in /home/EC2 user. So let me switch to the root user to perform some activities like installing the softwares, packages, and all those things. In order to switch to the root user, the command is sudo su. So just click enter. Now, if you do who am I, you can see I'm the root user. So let me clear the screen. Now, the next step is we need to set up the Jenkins. As I said earlier, I'm not directly going to show you how to work with the Nexus. It's basically a real-time project. I'm going to show you how to integrate Jenkins with Nexus. So in order to integrate Nexus with Jenkins, first we need to set up the Jenkins. So in order to set up the Jenkins, these are the different commands that we need to do. So since Jenkins requires the JDK installation, first I need to install JDK. So before installing any kinds of softwares, it is recommended to update the existing packages. So in order to update, the command is sudo apt update. So just paste the command so that any packages, if there are there, the packages will get updated. In order to work with a Java-based project, I need the Java software to be installed. And also, since we are working with Maven, Maven is developed by using Java programming language. So therefore, we need to install Java software here. So let me clear the screen. And then here currently, I'm going to install 17 version of the Java by using this command. So let me go with this one. So just paste the command here so that the Java 17 version will get installed. Once the software gets installed, then we have to verify whether the Java version which we are trying to install has got installed or not. So in order to check whether Java got installed or not, the command is Java space -- version. Click enter. You can see Java 17 version has got installed. So let me clear the screen. Now we need to install Jenkins. So in order to install Jenkins, there are two different ways. One is directly I can execute the commands one by one, or I can create a shell file and I will create a shell file. Inside that shell file, I'm going to keep all the commands that are required in order to launch the Jenkins. And then I will execute that shell file so that all the commands, whatever we have kept in the shell file, those commands will get executed automatically. Let me show you in that way. Vi space jenkins.sh. I'm just creating a shell file with the name called Jenkins. Okay, the extension is sh file because it's a shell file. You can give any name to the file, but since we are trying to install the Jenkins, I have given the name as Jenkins. So just click enter. You will be there inside the file. So first go to the insert mode, press character I in the keyboard to go to the insert mode. So I am currently there in the insert mode. And once you go to the insert mode, just copy paste all of these commands inside the Jenkins file. Okay, that is jenkins.sh file. So I have just pasted this one. That's it. Come out of the file, press escape, :WQ. That's how you can come out of the file. If you want to see the content inside the jenkins.sh file, you can see these are the files. Now, currently, if you do ls, you can see jenkins.sh file is there. But this file is not in the executable state. So you need to execute this file. So in order to convert this file into an executable file, we need to give the permission. Okay, we need to give the executable permission. So in order to give the executable permission, the command is sudo chmod, okay, change mode. And then what permission I want to give? Execute permission. So +X I have given. For what file I want to give the permission? Jenkins.sh. So here I have created jenkins.sh file. So whatever the file that you have created, the same name should be given here. So once you click enter, what will happen is the file will get the executable permission. Now you can see the file color has got changed. Earlier it was not there in the executable format. Now it is there in the executable format. So now what we can do, we can directly execute the shell file. Once we execute the shell file, whatever commands that are available inside the shell file, all those commands will get executed. So how will you execute it? If once in order to execute a shell file, the command is /the file name. Okay, /file name. So let me give /, what is the file name? Jenkins.sh. Click enter so that the Jenkins will get installed automatically by executing the commands in a chronological way. That is, first command will get executed first, then second command, then third command. Whatever we have kept in the Jenkins file, that is jenkins.sh file, all those commands will get executed one by one. You can see the entire commands are getting executed. So I will stop the screen sharing for some time. Once the Jenkins gets installed successfully, then we can see what to do with the next step. So you can see Jenkins has got installed. Now, since Jenkins is going to work on the default port number, which is 8080. So let me open that port number. So in order to open the port number 8080, select the instance, go to security. In the security, click on the security group link, and then Jenkins will work on port number 8080. So we have to edit the inbound rules. So click on edit inbound rules, and then we need to click on add rule. So type is custom TCP, port range is 8080 because Jenkins will run on this default port number. So I'm not going to change this port number. If you want, you can change also. But currently, let us not bother about changing the Jenkins port number. So I'm giving the source as anywhere IPv4. Click on save rules so that the port number will get changed. Once the port number gets changed, we need to copy the public IP address of the instance and then paste it in the new tab in order to access the Jenkins. So let me click on instances here. And once we get the public IP address of the instance, so select the instance, copy the public IP address, go to a new tab, paste the IP address :8080. Why 8080? Because Jenkins is going to run on port number 8080. So press enter, and then you will be able to see the different steps in order to work with the Jenkins. So first, in order to set up the Jenkins, we need an administrator password. So in order to set up the administrator password, or in order to get the administrator password, this is where the administrator password will be available. So let me copy it and then go to the MobaXterm. Let me clear the screen first, and then give cat space the path. So cat command will display the content in a file. So click enter so that you will be able to see the Jenkins administrator password. So copy this password and then paste it here. So, and then click on continue. Once it gets done, then you need to install the default plugins. Okay, install the suggested plugins. So click on this one so that all the plugins will get installed by default, which are required for Jenkins working process. So I'll stop the screen sharing for some time. Once everything gets installed, I will resume the thing. Once the plugins got installed, this is the screen that you are going to get. So here we need to give the username. So I'm just giving the username, and password also. We can give whatever password that you want, and then just confirm the password and then give the full name. I'll just give the Kastro as the name, and email address. You can give the email address of whatever you want, and then click on save and continue. So once you click on save and continue, now you will be able to access the Jenkins in this particular URL. So click on save and finish so that you will be able to see the Jenkins homepage. So click on start using Jenkins. And this is what the Jenkins homepage where we are going to set up the Jenkins pipeline in order to work with the Nexus. So currently I'm not going to touch any of this. So let it be the Jenkins console, let it be as it is. We will come back to this one in some time. And before working with the Jenkins, we need to install the Nexus. So in order to install the Nexus, let's go to the next step. The step 4 is about the setting up the Docker. Why we are setting up the Docker? Because once after we set up the Docker, then I am going to show you how to set up the Nexus as well. So this is actually the simplest way of setting up the Nexus. Using Docker, we can set up the Nexus. So that's why I'm using the Docker in order to set up the Nexus. So if you want to know whatever commands that are there here, all these commands can be accessed in this particular link where you can see all the commands, whatever are there. Right. So here also what I'll do is I will not directly execute all these commands one by one. Instead, what I will do is I will create a file called docker.sh file. Inside that docker.sh file, I'm going to keep all the commands, whatever that are available here, and then I will execute those files. So let me create the docker.sh file first. Vi docker.sh, go to the file, click enter, go to the insert mode, press character I in your keyboard, and then copy all the commands, whatever is given here, so that the Docker will get installed here. So I'm just copying these commands. If you want to get to know these commands, you can access this particular link where all the commands are available. So I'm just going to install those ones by using these commands, especially with respect to the Docker. You can see these are the Docker installation commands. Okay, let me come out of it, press escape, :WQ. So come out of it, that's done. Now, if you do cat space docker.sh, you can see the content inside the file. Currently, if you do ls, you can see docker.sh file doesn't have the permissions. Okay, docker.sh file doesn't have the executable permission. So if you want to get the executable permissions, we have the command sudo chmod. So just press up arrow, you will be able to see the command. And then instead of jenkins.sh, I'm going to give the file name as docker.sh so that executable permission will be available for the docker.sh file. So just click enter. Now, if you do ls, you can see docker.sh file has turned into green color. Earlier it was blue. Once it turned into green color, that means it is having the executable permission. So how will you execute a shell file? /docker.sh, the file name. Click enter so that whatever commands that are available, all those commands will get executed here. So just press Y to continue, and then you can see the commands are getting executed. So you can see the commands has got executed. Now, if you want to work with the next stages, okay, if you want to work with the next stages, we need to install some of the Docker packages. Okay, we need to install some of the Docker packages. So in order to install the latest version of the Docker packages, we need to execute this command, sudo apt get install docker c. So let me clear the screen first. These are the commands which are required to set up the Docker and a couple of other things. So just press Y. So I'm just executing those commands here in order to set up it. Once that is done, then I'm going to, already I have switched to the root user. If you don't want, I mean, since you have already switched to the root user, you don't have to execute this command. But if you haven't switched, you can execute this. Once those commands gets executed, we need to verify whether Docker is successfully installed or not. Let me clear the screen. If you want to know whether Docker is installed successfully or not, the command is docker space --version. Click enter. You can see Docker 27th version is available, or it got installed by using the commands. Right. Let me clear the screen. And then the next step is we need to set up the Nexus using Docker image. Okay. So since I want the Docker image of Nexus, what I have done is I have set up the Docker first. Okay, that is the reason why I have installed the Docker initially. And then I want to set up Nexus using Docker image. Since I want the Docker image of Nexus, I have done all the steps what I have shown here, especially in step 4. Right. So let's see how to get the Docker image of Nexus. So if you want to get the Docker image of Nexus, this is the Docker image of Nexus, sonar type /Nexus 3. Okay, this is the Docker image of Nexus. If you are seeing any latest images, you can execute those latest images also, right? So here in this particular command, Nexus 3 is actually the image that is available in the sonatype slash Nexus 3, which is basically a Docker image. And 80808081 is the default port number of Nexus. Just like how we have 8080 as the default port number for Jenkins, 8081 is the default port number of Nexus. So I'm going to give the host port number and container port number as same, which is 8081. And then I'm going to use the container name as Nexus 3. If you want, you can change the container name also, whatever name that you want, you can give. This is actually the container name. And then I'm going to run that container. So just execute this command so that the Docker image will get, the image of Sonatype Nexus 3 will get pulled, and then we will be there inside the container. So let me click enter, and you can see that the image is not available locally, so that it has connected to the Docker Hub and it is pulling the image from the Docker Hub or the Docker registry. Once the Sonatype Nexus image has got pulled, then what we will do is we need to work with a couple of other things, that is whether container is available or not, whether the Docker image is available or not. So how will you verify whether Nexus, that is Sonatype Nexus 3 image is available or not? We have the command Docker images. So click enter, you can see the Sonatype slash Nexus 3. This particular image is available. Since we have created a container called Nexus 3, okay, Nexus 3. So the container should be up and running because I have used Docker run command. So let's verify whether the container is up and running or not. So to see the container, whether it is in the running state or not, Docker ps is the command. And you can see the container called Nexus 3, it is up and running. You can see status, it is up 39 seconds. That means it is running from 39 seconds. If you want to know the complete details about the Docker, I have created a Docker basics to brilliance course, which I am going to provide in the description of this video. You can also check that playlist if you want to know more details about the in-depth concept about the Docker. Right. So let me clear the screen first. I can see the Docker image, that is Nexus, is available and Docker container is also running. So let us access the Docker, the Nexus now. So in order to access the Nexus, we need to open port number 8081. So go to security, select the instance, go to security, click on the security group link, and then edit inbound rules. In the inbound rules, which port number we have to open? 8081. So click on add rule, custom TCP 8081. That's the default port number of Nexus. If you want, you can change also, but we don't need to work with that as of now. And then click on save. Once you have saved the rules, just go to a new tab in the browser and then paste the public IP address of the instance :8081. 8081 is for Nexus. That's a default port number. So click enter so that you'll be able to see the Nexus. You can see Sonatype Nexus repository. It is currently loading. So once this is coming, or once this is available, then what we have to do is we have to do a couple of settings here. You can see. So I have shown you how to access the Nexus. But here, what you have to remember is Nexus won't come that fast. So you have to be little patient to get the Nexus. So this is how the Nexus home page looks like. Okay, you can see the browse, search, connect, and then you can also see the same options in the left side. And you can see the latest releases of Nexus repository also. So we'll be working with this one, how to work with this one. But before that, we need to sign into the Nexus. That is the next step that I have given. You can see to log into the Nexus, click on sign in. Okay, click on sign in the top right corner. So you can see the sign in button is there on the top right corner. So click on sign in. And here it is asking the username and password. The default username is admin. You can see your admin user. Admin is the default username. So just type admin and password. Where the password is available, it will be available in this part. Okay, copy this entire path. So let me copy this one, copy this entire path, and then go to the MobaXterm. So go to MobaXterm and then cat space the path. Since I want to see the password, I'm giving cat space path. Click enter, and you can see it is telling there is no such file or directory. But here, what you have to remember is, I'll be showing that here. So you can see to get the password, go to MobaXterm, and then now we need to go inside the container. Okay, we need to go inside the container. So which container? We have created a Docker container. If you remember Docker PS, you can see this is the container that we have created. Nexus 3 is the container. First, we need to go inside this container. Why we need to go inside the container? Because inside this container only, we have pulled the Nexus image. Okay, inside this container only, Nexus image is being run. So this thing, that this path, you need to go first inside the container, and then inside the container, you need to execute this one. But how will you go inside a container? So if you want to go inside a container, this is the command. Okay, Docker exec is the command. So before that, let me execute that command. In the place of container ID, make sure you should give the container ID. How will you get the container ID? This is basically the container ID. Which container ID? Nexus container ID, whatever we have created. So let me delete this container ID and then paste the container ID of Nexus. Once you paste it, click enter so that you will be there inside the container. Now currently you are there inside the container. You can do ls and you can see all the Nexus related files are available. Okay, all the Nexus related files are available. Now, where exactly this file is available or that password you are going to get. So you can see sonar type -work. Can you see that sonar type -work? Yes. So let me go into that first sonar type -work and then do ls. You can see Nexus 3 directory, cd space Nexus 3, click enter. Now, if you do ls, you can see there is this thing called admin.password. Okay, there is this thing called admin.password. That is the same thing you can see. So you can see a file called admin.password file. So now you do cat space admin.password and you will be there inside. I mean, you can see the password here. But here, if you see, here there is no password. But this is the password. Copy the entire thing up to bash. Don't copy bash here. Just before B, whatever is there, that is the password. Okay, copy that. Just before B, whatever is there, that is the entire password. You need to copy from starting to end. Just before B, whatever content is there, copy that entire one. Okay, that is what I have given here also. So copy the password, don't copy bash. Okay, bash dot hyphen 4.4. So if you see anything else also, don't copy that. Just before B, whatever is there, just copy that. So I'm just going to copy it, paste it in the password here. That's it. And then click on sign. Now you are signed into the Nexus. So here it is asking you to set up and it is going to give you 4 steps here. So let me click on next and then it is asking to create a new password. So let me create a new password and then click on next. Right. And here you need to know about 2 things. One is enable anonymous access and disable anonymous access. What does it mean? If you enable anonymous access means by default, users can search, browse and download the component. If you enable this one, what will happen is anybody who is having the Nexus login credentials, they can do any kinds of searchings. They can do the browsing of data or browsing of the artifacts. They can download the artifacts without requiring any kind of credentials. If you just give the IP address, that's done. Anybody can access the repository. That's called as enable anonymous access. If you disable anonymous access, what has to be need is they need the credentials. So if you enable anonymous access without credentials, anybody can access the Nexus. If you disable anonymous access, if anybody wants to access the Nexus repository, they need the credentials, that is username and password. So in real-time scenarios, we will usually go with disable anonymous access. For this demo, you can go with any one of these things. That's completely up to you. But since we are going to follow this one in the real-time scenario, I'm just going to select this one because whenever anybody wants to access Nexus, they need to enter the credentials. Okay, they need to enter the credentials. What is the username of Nexus? Admin. What is the password of Nexus? Whatever we have kept some time back, that's the password. Okay, click on next. That's done. And then click on finish. Right. So now you can see these are the different things that are available. You can see total components. Currently, we don't have any kind of components. And then unique logins, you can see I have just created. So I'm unable to see any kind of unique logins, requests per day, system health, and all those things. Okay, you can scroll down and you can look into the different options, whatever that are available. You can see Nexus is going to support these many formats. It supports Docker images also. Okay, it supports the Python files also, NPM packages, Maven, Helm charts it will support. Like this, there are different things which are supported by Nexus. Right. So currently we have set up the Jenkins and we have set up the we have set up this one as well, which is Nexus. Right. Now, the next thing is we need to set up some tools for Nexus in the Jenkins. We need to install some tools in the Jenkins. So before that, let me come out of the container. So if you want to come out of the Docker container, just press exit, click enter. Now you are there outside of the container. If you do pwd, you can see /home/Ubuntu. Let me clear the screen. Now, as I was mentioning, we need to install some plugins in the Jenkins. Okay, in order to work with the Nexus, we need to install some plugins in the Jenkins. So how will you install plugins? Click on Manage Jenkins. So first go to the Jenkins dashboard, go to Manage Jenkins. In the Manage Jenkins, there is this option called Tools, and then we need to do a couple of configurations here. And then there is this option called Plugins, and then we need to go with a couple of other things also. I'll tell you one by one. So let me go to the notes here, and you can see set up tools for Nexus. So first we need to go to Manage Jenkins and then go to Plugins. In the plugins, we need to go to Available Plugins. So just click on Plugins, and here you can see in the left pane, Available Plugins. Click on Available Plugins, and here we need to install some plugins. What are those plugins? I can show it here. So Config File Provider. This is the plugin that I need to install firstly. So select the copy paste here, and this is the plugin. Okay. And then you also need to install a couple of other plugins, that is Maven integration, because we are working with Maven based project also for Java. So we need Maven as well in order to build the artifacts. Maven is a build tool. Okay, that's why Maven integration, and then Eclipse Temerin installer. So this particular thing is used if you have different Java software versions. Okay, if you have different Java software versions, and if you want to switch from one version to another version, this Eclipse Temerin installer will work. Okay, if you have different versions of Java. Currently in my system, I have only Java 17 version. If you see Java space -- version, you can see currently I have Java 17 version of it. But in real-time scenarios, people will be working with different versions of Java. In that case, in Jenkins, if you want to shift from one version of Java to another version of Java, we need to install this plugin called Eclipse Temerin installer. It will help you to switch from one Java version to another Java version. And then I'm going to install this one called Pipeline Maven integration. Okay, Pipeline Maven integration. This tool is basically used to integrate Maven with the Jenkins pipeline. Okay, select this one and then click on install. There is one more plugin which I have to install, which is called as Pipeline Stage View. So that in order to see the stage-wise execution of the pipeline, which we are going to create. So select this one also. Okay, click on install so that all the plugins, whatever we have selected, they will be getting installed. Once the plugins gets installed, then we need to go back to the top page. So click on this button and then you will be going back to the Jenkins dashboard. Right. So once after this is done, let these things happen. Once after this is done, the next thing that we have to do is we need a couple of other things. Okay, we need a couple of other things. What are those things? As I was mentioning, we need to do some tool configuration. In the Manage Jenkins, we need to do some tool configuration. But before doing the tool configuration, if you want to access Nexus, we need an URL. Okay, we need a URL, we need a password, and we need an username. These three things are required. That is how we are accessing the Nexus now. So first I have kept the URL, and then I have signed in. And once I sign in, I need the username and password. These three things were required. Okay, these three things were required. But if you want to configure them, okay, if you want to configure them, we need a file which is known as settings.xml file. This is the default file. Okay, if you want to configure them in a file, we need to use a file called settings.xml file. This settings.xml file will be configured in the Jenkins. Okay, this settings.xml file will be configured in the Jenkins. So in order to configure this settings.xml file, I have installed this plugin called Config File Provider. The reason why I have installed the Config File Provider plugin is I want to work with the settings.xml file. So what will be there inside the settings.xml file? The Nexus URL, Nexus username, and the Nexus password. These three things we are going to keep it in the settings.xml file, right? So now let us install. Okay, let us install some of the tools such as JDK, and then Maven we need to install. Okay, JDK and Maven. Right. Let me go do that. How will you do the plugin in, the tool integration? Just go to the Jenkins dashboard, manage Jenkins, and then here you can see tools here. So just click on tools here, Once you click on tools, you need to add some of the tools. What is the first one? JDK. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see JDK installation. Click on add JDK. And since 17 version of JDK I have given, I have installed, I am giving the name as JDK 17. You can give any name, that's completely up to you. And home page, it's not required to give, and then click on install automatically. Once you click on install automatically, you can see add installer, click on this one. And here you can see there is this thing called install from adoptium.net. This plugin, I mean, this option you will see when you install a plugin called Eclipse Temiran Installer. We have installed a plugin, right? Eclipse Temiran Installer. When you install this plugin, then only this particular option will be visible. Otherwise, it won't be visible. So click on this one and select which version of Java we are working. 17 version of Java. So scroll down and you can see 17 version of Java. There are different 17 versions of Java. You can select any one, but currently I'm going with 17.0.11 plus 9. Okay, 17.0.11 plus 9. So let me go here and let me select the Java 17.0.11 plus 9. This is the latest one in Java 17. So I'm going with this one. Next, the latest. Okay, select this one. And then the next thing that we need to do is we don't have to do any kind of Git installation. If you want, you can just give it. That won't be any problem. And then the Maven also we have to work. Because our project is a Java-based project, we need to compile and we need to package and we need to generate the artifacts using Maven. So I'm giving Maven installation here. So click on add Maven. And then Maven, let's say I'm going to install Maven 7 version. So just give name whatever you want. You can see in the document also. So here you can see I'm going with the Maven 3 version. Okay, Maven 3 version. So that's the latest version which is available. So you can give any name. It's not about Maven 7, it's Maven 3. So you can give any name here, but since Maven which I'm going to install is of 3rd version, I'm just giving the Maven 3 version. And you can see the latest version is 3.9.9. If you want, you can select any other versions also, but it's good to go with the latest version. So I'm just going with the latest version of Maven, which is 3.9.9. So select 3.9.9 and then click on apply and save. So that whatever tools we have configured, that tools will get configured. How many tools we have configured? 2 tools. One is JDK. Git is an option. If you want, you can configure. If you don't configure also, that won't be any problem. Because however, Git we need to install in the EC2 instance in order to get the source code from GitHub. Okay. And then the next tool which we have configured is Maven. Okay, Maven 3rd version. Right. So and then click on apply save. That's it. Now we have set up the Maven. Okay, we have which are required to work with the Nexus. And then this is the repository which I am going to use in order to work with the Nexus. Okay, the Nexus demo repository is there. So this repository link also I'll be providing in the description of this video. You can use this repository when you are practicing it. So let me go to that repository and let me show you that. Click enter and you can see the Nexus demo repository is available in my system. Okay, this is the Nexus demo repository. Okay, so this repository is not completely mine. It is taken from other sources, but I have modified it according to my requirement. And this is the Nexus demo repository, right? So that is what I have given it here. Now, in the Nexus demo repository, you have a file called pom.xml file. Okay, pom.xml file. What is the full form of POM? Project Object Model. The full form of POM is Project Object Model. Whenever we create the Maven folder structure, we will be getting this file, which is known as pom.xml file. So click on the pom.xml file, and then we need to do some editings here. Some changes we have to do. So do the pom.xml file modifications directly in the GitHub repository. So in the pom.xml file, you need to add this thing. Okay, you need to add this thing. Okay, so here, let me show you that. When you see here, it's asking for Nexus URL. So what is the Nexus URL? Whatever is the Nexus URL of yours, you should give that. Similarly, here also. Okay, so here we have 2 things. One is called as Maven releases, and the other one is called as a Maven snapshot. So what does it mean by snapshot? Snapshot means when the project is still in the development stage, the developers will make the name as snapshot. Once the development part is completed, then it will be named as release. So we have 2 things in Nexus. One is called as Maven releases, and the second one is called as Maven snapshot. By using these 2 names only, in the Nexus repository, the folders will get created. Okay, by using these two names only in the Nexus, the folders will get created, right? So in the above, to get Nexus URL, go to the browser. That is what I have done. Click on browse and then left pane. You can see Maven releases and Maven snapshots. Let me show you that. So just go to the browser. In the browser, go to the Nexus, which we have created. In this, go to browse. So click on browse here. And here you can see Maven releases and Maven snapshot. Okay, Maven releases and Maven snapshot. And here you can see the URL for both. So for Maven releases, just click on copy here. Okay, just click on copy here so that Maven releases related URL will get copied. So copy this one. So copy, it gets copied, copy, and then go here and paste it. Okay, before that, let me copy this entire thing and paste it in the repository. So just let me go to the GitHub repository directly. You can do these changes. When you are working, you can fork this repository. So how will you fork a repository? You will see the option called fork. Okay, you'll see an option called fork. So let me click on this one. I'll show you how to fork a repository. Here you can see this is the latest repository. So nobody has forked. So probably after this video got released, people will be forking. So if you want, you can fork it. Okay, when you're working. Right. So now let me go to the pom.xml file. And then here we need to do some editing. So if you want to edit the pom.xml file, you can see the pen icon here. Click on edit this file. And then if you scroll down, you will be able to see something like this. Okay, distribution management and something like this. So let me show you that option here. Or if you don't see anything, you can just copy paste directly in the end. Okay, directly in the end. So let me show you that. Just give me a second. Yeah, here you can see I have already pasted. So you can see distribution management. In the end, you can paste it. So when you fork this repository, automatically you'll get this one. But what you have to do is you have to change this URL. Okay, you have to change this URL that is related to Maven releases. And you have to change this URL that is related to Maven snapshots. So first, let me change the Maven releases URL. So I'm just going to delete this one. Okay, and then paste the URL which you've got copied here. This is Maven releases URL. So just go here and then paste it. Maven releases URL. Similarly, remove this Maven snapshots URL also. Okay, Maven snapshots URL also. And then go to the Nexus browser, close this one. And you can see Maven snapshots. Click on copy link. The link will get copied. Go to the next repository and then paste the URL of Maven snapshots. That's it. If you do that and then do commit changes, that will be done. And then click on commit changes. Right. So I have changed the Maven snapshots and Maven releases URL. That is what the same thing I have given. Go to the Nexus tab, click on browse. In the left pane, you can see Maven releases and Maven snapshots, and then click on copy next to Maven releases. And then a dialog box will open. That is what happened. And copy that URL and paste it. Okay, right. Now we have pasted the Nexus configurations in the pom.xml file. Now what we need to do is we will be working with a file called settings.xml file. I was telling that in some time back. Settings.xml file. So now what we have to do is we have to configure the username, password, and the URL of Nexus in the settings.xml file. Okay, in the settings.xml file. That's our next step. So what we have to do is now let's add the credentials of Nexus in Jenkins. So if you want to add the Nexus credentials in Jenkins, we need to go to a file called a settings.xml file. So how will you go to the settings.xml file? Manage Jenkins, managed files. So let me show you that. Go to Jenkins dashboard, manage Jenkins. And then if you scroll down, you will be able to see this managed files. So click on this managed files. If you have installed the plugins correctly, then only you'll be able to see this managed files option. Otherwise, you will not able to see. So make sure to install the plugins, whatever I have showed previously. And then once you go to the managed files, in the left pane, you can see add a new configuration. Okay, click on add a new configuration. And here, what we need to select is we need to select a global Maven settings.xml option. So select this particular option, global Maven settings.xml, and scroll down. And here you can see ID. Okay, you can see ID. That is what you can scroll down to see the ID and remove whatever ID that is there, remove that. And then give the name as settings.xml. Just remove whatever content is there here. Control A, delete, and then paste the name of settings.xml file. Make sure to paste as it is. Don't change anything because if you change, you have to do the configurations again. So go with this default one itself. And then click on next. So click on next. Once you click on next, you need to do some configurations here as well. I'll show you that. Click on next. You can see content under the content box. If you scroll down, you can see this is the content. Now, this content, what we have to do is we have to copy this entire content. Currently, this content is commented. Okay, this content is commented. If you see this one, that means it is commented. Now we have to remove that comment. Okay, we have to remove that comment or uncomment this. How will you do uncomment it? I'll show it here. Scroll down till you see servers in green color. You will see something like below. You can see this one. This is what I was talking about. Okay, if you scroll down to complete bottom, you will see an option called servers. Yeah, you can see. You'll see this option called servers, right? So this is commented. Everything in this file is commented only. So you, whichever you want, you have to uncomment it. So servers is available in the green color. Scroll down up to here, and then we need to uncomment it. Scroll down till you see servers in green color. You will see something like below. The same content, you will also see it here. Okay, the same content, you are also seeing it here. So let me keep it little top. Yeah, this is what, right? So now what you have to do is scroll down further till you see something like below. That is this one, deployment repo, repo user, and repo password. The username, that is Nexus username, Nexus ID, and then Nexus password. You can see it here. Okay, so what you have to do here, so I was telling about this one. Okay, so now in the above, remove this comment. Okay, as I said, comment is there, right? Which is at the end, and paste it above. So if you see here, so comment, remove this one. Okay, remove this one, and then paste it above. So let me paste it here. Just you press enter and then paste it here. That's it. Once you paste it, you can see few things color will get changed. Why this got changed? Because we have uncommented this. Okay, uncommented this. Now we need to do the configuration. So which is at the end and paste below. So you will see something like this. And then now you can see few things turned into green color. See this detailed notes I have given. Each and every change I have made it as a note. So you can see few things turned into green color. Now we need to do these changes. Repo username, password, and deployment repo. So here is where we will add the server ID, username, and password. So you should add the below. So what you should do is you should do these things. Okay, you should add these things. So let me copy this entire one. Okay, copy this entire one and paste it here. You don't have to do all of these things. Remove this one and paste it here. Okay, remove these things and paste it here. Right. So username of Nexus is admin. Username of password, which I have set is Kastro. And similarly for Maven releases, Maven snapshots. For both, I have set the same thing. These two are available where? In the Nexus repository. These two are available in the Nexus repository only. Okay, that is what I have done. So just copy this entire thing and then paste it. That's it. Make sure you have given the correct indentation. Okay, so make sure you have given the correct indentation. So give the indentation properly. That I'll give it here as well, and then I'll give it here also. Similarly here. So make sure to give the indentation properly. Right, that's done. Once you do this, click on submit. Okay, click on submit. So let me click on submit button. Right, I have seen, you can see the settings.xml file is configured. Okay, settings.xml file is configured. Now we need to create the Jenkins pipeline. Whatever we have seen till the 6 steps, all those steps are related to the configuration of Nexus, Jenkins, JDK, Maven, all those things. Now what we have to do, we have to create a pipeline job. Okay, we have to create a pipeline job. Now before creating a pipeline job, we need to install Maven. Okay, we need to install Maven. We need to install Git. Where we need to install? Inside the EC2 instance. So how will you install a Git? Sudo apt install git-y. So this is the command to install Git. So make sure to install Git. Once you have installed the Git, you can select Git version. You can see the version, latest version has got installed. Now let's write the pipeline. Okay, now let us write the pipeline. So that's what the next stage is. Okay, so let's see how to write the pipeline. So let us first create our Jenkins job in order to build the pipeline, and then we will see how this pipeline is going to push the artifacts to the Nexus repository. That is what we are going to see. So first, in order to create a job, first we need to go to the Jenkins dashboard and then click on new item. In the new item, we have to give the project name or enter any item name. It's typically the project that you're working. So I'll keep it as Nexus project as the project name or job name. And then I'll select the pipeline because I'm going to create the pipeline. So select pipeline and then click on OK. Once we click on OK, we need to create a pipeline or we need to write a pipeline. So in order to write a pipeline, here you can see in the description, if you want, you can give, let's say, I'll give it as, this is Nexus project. Nexus project by Kastro. So I'll just give something like this. If you want, you can avoid this one. There is no rule that you should give description always. So you can just keep it out with this one. And then these options, we are not going to work in this project and build triggers and all those options. But what we are going to work is the pipeline concept. Suppose if you have the pipeline in the form of a Jenkins file, you can select the Jenkins file by configuring the source code management. Here SCM represents the source code management. If you select this option, here you have to select what is your source code management. Typically it is Git. And then here the Jenkins file, I mean the repository URL you have to provide, and then the credentials you have to provide, and that will be done. But here I'm not having any kind of Jenkins file. I want to show it practically to you how to write the Jenkins file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a pipeline script here. Okay, pipeline script. In real time, whatever repositories that you are working with the project, in every repository, the Jenkins file will be there. In order to configure that Jenkins file directly in the pipeline, you can select this option and you can work it out. But however, we need to write the pipeline script. So in order to write the pipeline script, I'm going to select this option called pipeline script. And here I'm going to select this option called Hello World Simple Pipeline. So it's just a sample pipeline. By using this pipeline only, we are going to write the whole pipeline, whatever stages that I'm going to talk in some time. All those stages, we are going to write it here itself. Right. So any pipeline will start with pipeline and agent is any. And now we need to write the stages. So in the pipeline that I am going to write, we are going to write some 6 to 7 stages. The first stage will be getting the code from repository. So that I'll call it as Git checkout. And then we are going to do a couple of Maven goals execution. Let's say compilation, testing, building. And finally, we are going to see how to do the deployment of artifacts. So these are the 5 stages which I am going to write. So let me write the first stage. The first stage is Git checkout, or you can make it as code from repository, or usually people will mention it as Git checkout. So this is basically the stage name. Okay, you can give any name to the stage. This is basically the stage name. And here what we need to do, we need to configure the repository URL. Now, in order to configure the repository URL, directly I can paste the repository URL. Whatever is my GitHub repository is there, this repository URL, I can directly paste it. But the problem is if you paste like this directly the repository URL here, it is not a recommended approach in the real-time scenarios. So what we have to do is in real-time scenarios, most of the repositories are private repositories. This is a public repository. But in real time, most of the repositories will be a private repositories. So when you want to configure any repository, which is a private repository, there is a different approach for that. Even if you are working with the public repository, you can follow the process which I am going to show now. But this process will applicable if it is a private repository also. Let me show you that. So go here, and if you scroll down to the bottom, you can see this option called pipeline syntax. So open this option in a new tab. So this is where we are going to generate a pipeline script. So before it comes, let me go to the repository and let me copy the repository URL. So you can see this is the repository URL. So copy that repository URL and then go to the previous tab where you have opened the pipeline script. Sorry, pipeline syntax. Now here what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the sample step as a Git because we are working with Git only. So I'm selecting sample step as Git and the repository URL you have to paste. So paste the repository URL and then in which branch the code is available. If you see, I have only one branch that is called as main branch. Suppose if the code is available in your repository in a different branch, you have to give that branch name. Okay, that branch name you have to provide it here. So currently my code is available in the main branch only. When you fork this repository, okay, when you fork this repository, automatically you will be getting the code to main branch only. So make sure to check whether it is main branch or master branch and then give the branch name accordingly. And then comes the credentials. As I was mentioning, in real-time scenarios, we will have mostly the private repositories. So when private repositories are there, we have to configure the credentials of GitHub. Okay, we have to configure the credentials of GitHub. Currently, whatever repository that I am using, it's a public repository. So for public repositories, it is not required to configure the credentials. But if it is a private repository, you need to mandatorily configure the GitHub credentials. Now I'll just show you how to configure the credentials, but I'm not going to configure them and use them in this pipelines. So let me show you that. Here you can see there are no credentials that are available. So if you want to add the credentials, you can see this option called add and then click on Jenkins. And here you need to select a couple of options. Let's say domain is global credentials. You can select that. And kind is username with password because GitHub will have username and password. And scope is global. You should give here the username as GitHub username. Okay, you should give the username as GitHub username. And the password is GitHub password you have to provide. Credentials is you can give any name, whatever name that you want, you can give. I usually give Git credentials, Maven credentials, like this I'll give. So you can give whatever name that you want here. Okay, and then click on add. Once you click on add, I'll tell you that. Let me cancel this one. I'm not adding anything. So let me click on cancel. Once you click on add, and here you can see credentials option, right? If you click on this drop down, whatever credentials that you have added there, all those credentials will be available here. Okay, that credentials will be shown here. So from this dropdown, you can select that credential. So currently, as I was mentioning, it's a public repository. We don't need to configure the credentials. I assume that you have an idea about how to add the credentials if it is a private repository, right? And once it is done, you can click on generate pipeline syntax. Once you generate the pipeline syntax, okay, once you generate the pipeline syntax, what will happen is the pipeline syntax will get created. Okay, the pipeline syntax will get created. Let me repeat the steps. The sample step is git repository URL. You have to paste that repository URL wherever your code is available. Branch, I have the code currently in the main branch, so I'm giving it as main branch. And then click on generate pipeline script. Once you generate the pipeline script, this is the hard-coded pipeline script. So copy this entire one and then go to the Jenkins pipeline view. And here you just paste that one. Okay, whatever this one is there, you just remove this echo hello world and paste the pipeline syntax script which you have generated for the GitHub repository. Right, that's it. And then click on apply and save. Apply and save. That's it. So once you click on apply and save, we will see whether this project will get built or not. The first stage, whatever we have written, whether it gets built or not. But how will you do the build? You can see here there is an option called build now. Okay, there is this option called build now. Now, currently, before clicking the build now, you can see, do we have any build history? No, currently there are no builds. That means I have not built this project anytime now. So now what we will do, let us click on build now. So you can see this option called build now. We need to click this one. Once we click this option, then the build history will be shown. Let me show you that. So I'm just clicking on build now option. Once I click on build now, you can see the first stage, the first build is getting built. And you can see the stage-wise execution also. And what is the status of the build? You can see it is success, right? So I have written the first stage. Now, similarly, we have to write the second stage. Now, the next stage is, now currently the code is taken from the GitHub repository by this Jenkins pipeline. So what would be the next stage? The next stage would be compilation. Now, currently I have the Java code. So whenever you have the Java code, you need to do the compilation. What is meant by compilation? Conversion of .java file into .class file is known as compilation. Okay, the conversion of .java file into .class file is known as compilation. So if you want the Jenkins pipeline to do that compilation, we need to write one more stage called compile stage. So let me show you how to write that. So in order to edit the existing pipeline script, you can go to the configure. So click on configure. And here we need to go to the pipeline. In the pipeline, we need to do the changes. Now, my first stage is git checkout. Now, what is my second stage? The compilation or compile, you can keep it as. Now, whenever you want to write a next stage, just copy the entire thing from stage, not from stages, from stage. From stage, you copy and leave the last two flower brackets. Okay, leave the last two flower brackets, copy it, and then go to the next line. Okay, go to the next line and then paste it. That's it. Now we can edit this one according to our requirement. Okay, we can edit this one according to our requirement. Now, what is my second stage? My second stage is a compilation. I'll keep it as stage name as a compilation. Now, in order to do the compilation, we have Maven goals. Okay, we have different Maven goals. if you want the Jenkins pipeline to do the compilation, we need to execute one goal. What is that goal? That goal name is maven compile. So let me remove this GitHub repository URL. That's not required. And then we need to execute a goal called maven compile. So the goal is mvn space compile. But if you just write like this, the pipeline will not understand, or the Jenkins will not understand what is this. So it's a command actually. So it's a shell command. So what we have to do, whenever you are writing a command, you just have to keep it in the quotations. Okay, say single quotations, you have to keep it. And then this is a command. So how Maven will understand whether it is a command or not? If you want Maven to understand whether it is a command or not, you should give sh in the beginning and then give space. Okay, make sure of this. You should give sh in the beginning and then give space, start the inverted quotations, and then give the Maven goal, that is MVN compile, and then close the quotation. Now here, Maven is basically a third-party software. Okay, Maven is basically a third-party software. So whenever you are using any third-party software, in the pipeline script, we have to mention that third-party software name. So where you need to mention, you can see pipeline agent any. Just below that, we are using Maven tool. Okay, we are using Maven tool. So you keep the cursor on agent any, click enter, and in the next line, you write tools. Which tool we are using? Maven. So tools, and then give the space, open the flower brackets, and then click enter. And what is the tool that I'm writing? That I'm using? Maven. Now, in Jenkins, I was showing some time back, I have configured JDK 17 and Maven 3. If you remember, I have configured JDK 17 and Maven 3. So what is the name of the Maven which I have configured in the Jenkins? The name is Maven 3. If you don't have an idea about this one, please go back to the previous section of this video. You'll be getting to know where I have configured this Maven 3. I have configured JDK 17 and Maven 3. So whatever name you have given while configuring Maven, the same name you should give. If you have configured with a different name, you should give that name only here. Make sure of it. This is most important. Right, I have given the Maven goal. Now the compilation is done. Now let me click on apply and save, and let's see whether the second stage will also get built or not. Currently, how many builds we have? Only one build we have. What is the first build? It's about git checkout. So that stage is success. Now let me click on build now once again, and let's verify whether the second build will be successful or not. If it is successful, that's fine. If it is not successful, we should know what is the reason for that. You can see the compilation is getting happening and it is taking some time. You can see the time also it is showing out. Once the compilation is successful, then we have to write the next stage. You can see the compilation is a success. What is the status of the second stage? Success. So first what it has done, it has involved the tools. Whatever Maven tool that we have taken, first it has downloaded the tool and then it has checked out, the code will checked out, and then the compilation is done. The compilation is done. This is the second build. Now, once compilation is done, then we have to do the testing. Okay, then we have to do the testing. Now, in Maven, we have a goal called MVN test. Maven tool will do the testing also. Okay, Maven tool will do the testing also. So let me write that stage. So how will you write an existing, how will you edit the existing script? Just go to configure. In the configure, if you scroll down to the bottom, that is pipeline. And here, let me write the third stage. Okay, the third stage. What is my third stage? But before writing the third stage, what I have told, just copy wherever stage is there, just copy this entire thing up to the last two flower brackets. Leave the last two flower brackets and copy just before that. So I'm copying it and then press enter and then paste it. That's it. Now, what is the stage name that I'm doing? I am doing the testing. Okay, let me write the stage name as testing. Now, how I am doing the testing? I am doing testing by using a Maven goal. What is a Maven goal? MVN test. So what does MVN test goal will do? It will do the testing, unit testing of the code. We have Sonar Cube also to do the testing, but by using Maven, I am doing this code. I am doing the testing of the code, which is called as unit testing. Since it's a command, I am keeping it in the inverted quotations, single inverted quotations. And since it's also a command, I'm keeping it as SH. SH means shell. Okay. And then click on apply, save. So I have written the second stage, the next stage also. Now, let me build the job one more time. Now, currently, how many builds we have? 2 builds we have. So let me click on build now. And you can see the third build will start executing. You can see the third build is getting executed, and you can see the first stage is completed. Second stage is also completed. Compilation is also successful. Now the testing is happening. Once the testing is successful, then we have to write the next stage. Okay, we have to write the next stage. So you can see it is taking some 9 seconds and 14 seconds it is taking. So once it is successful, then only we can go and write the next stage. And you can see what is the status of the stage, the testing stage. It is success. So the third build, you can see in the left side, you can see the third build is also successful. Now, once the testing is successful, then we need to package it. Okay, then we need to package it. What does it mean by packaging? Creating a jar file. Okay, creating a jar or war file for our application. For all Java-based project, we will be creating either a jar file or war file based on the type of application. So how will you create a jar or war file? You need to execute a Maven goal there. That's called as building the code. Okay, that's called as building the code. So let me write the next stage, which is known as a build stage. So how will you edit an existing script? So go to configure. In the configure, if you scroll down to pipeline, and here I am going to write one more stage. Okay, I'm going to write one more stage. So what I have done, what I have told earlier, just to copy this entire thing and leave the last two flower brackets. Okay, leave the last two flower brackets and then click enter, paste it, right? So after testing, what is the next stage that I am willing to write? Building. Let's say I'm going to write the building the code or building. Anything you can write, whatever you want, you can write. Or just build is also fine. Any name you can give to the stage. Now, in order to build the code, okay, in order to build the code, we have a goal which is known as a package goal. Okay, we have a goal which is known as package goal. So what does package goal will do? Package goal will package the entire code as a jar file. For this project, a jar file will get created. So that is why I'm giving MVN package. This is a Maven goal. Okay, this is a Maven goal, right? So let me click on apply and save. So now with this, the next stage is also successfully written. Now let us build the job. Okay, let us build the job. Once you build the job, what should happen? The jar file should get created. Okay, that jar file should get created. So let me click on build now. And you can see the fourth build will get started in some time. I have just clicked on it. And you can see the fourth build has got started. And you can see the stage-wise execution process also. So the first stage is successful. Git checkout is also successful. Compilation is also successful. The testing is happening. And you can see the testing stage is ongoing process. Once the testing stage is successful, then it will be going to the next stage, which is called as build stage. Okay, next stage, which is called as build stage. And you can see testing is also successful. Now it is building the code. Now, what does it mean by building the code? Creating a jar file for the application. That is called as an artifact. Okay, that is called as an artifact. Creating the jar file of an application is called as an artifact. Now, the code is built. Okay, the code is built. That means artifact has got generated. Now, once the artifact got generated, now what we have to do? We have to deploy that artifact into the Nexus repository. Ultimately, that is what we are looking to do. We want to deploy the artifact to the Nexus repository. Now, how will you do that? We need to write the next stage. Okay, we need to write the next stage. So let me show you before that. Let me show you whether the code that is jar file has got created or not. How will you know that? Here you can just click on the build, the latest build, whatever is there, click on the build. Why I'm clicking this one? Because in this build only, the building stage has got executed. That means packaging has got completed. So just click on this build number, that is #4, and you can see the console output. So click on console output. Once you click on console output, you will see the entire log of the pipeline script, what it got executed. You can see that entire thing. Okay. Now here you will be seeing an option called a building jar. Okay, building jar. Let me show you that. I'll just do Control F and then I'll search with that option called building jar. Yeah. Here you can see it is building the jar file. In which path it has built the jar file? This is the path. Okay, this is the path where the jar file got built. What is the name of the jar file? This is the name of the jar file. You can see database underscore service underscore project hyphen 0.0.5.jar. Now, can I verify this jar file in my EC2 instance? Can I verify that same jar file in my EC2 instance? Yes. But in order to verify, first you need to go to this path. Okay, you need to go to this path. Let me show you that. So if you want to go to that path, we have the command cd space /var. Var is one directory. Inside var, we have a directory called lib. So let me click enter. So currently I am there. If you do pwd, I am there in /var/lib. If you do ls, you can see the different directories that are available. Now, once you go into the /var/lib, what is the next thing that you have to do? You can see /var/lib. The next directory is Jenkins. So let me go inside the Jenkins directory. cd space Jenkins. cd space Jenkins. Now, if you do ls, inside Jenkins, you have a subdirectory called workspace. Okay, workspace. So let me go inside that cd space workspace. Let me clear the screen. Now, if you do pwd, I am there in /var/lib/jenkins/workspace. Now you do ls. If you do ls, you can see the Nexus project is available. Okay, Nexus project is available. So how this Nexus project name is coming? If you see here, the pipeline name, what is the name of the pipeline that I have created? Nexus project. The same with the same name, whatever you have given, a repository will get created. If you have created the pipeline with a different name, okay, if you have created a pipeline with a different name, that name will be shown here. Make sure of it. So let me go inside that Nexus project, click enter. Now inside this, a target folder will get created. Okay, target folder will be get created. So now the question is how this target folder is coming. Since we are building the project, okay, whenever you build the project, that means whenever you create a jar file or war file, the jar or war file will get created inside this target directory only. Okay, inside this target directory only. So let me go inside the target directory, cd space target. Now, if you do ls, you can see the jar file what we have created. Can you see how this jar file got created? By using the build stage, MVN package goal we have configured in the pipeline. By using that, the jar file has got created. Okay, by using that, the jar file has got created. The same name of the jar file, you can see it here, and you can also see it here also. You can see that, right? So currently we have built the code. Now, what is the next thing? We have the jar file. That means we have the artifact. Once we generate the artifact, what we have to do? We have to deploy that artifact to the Nexus repository. So how will you do that? So I'm just going to the project, go to Nexus project, and then I'm going to write a stage. So click on configure. Once you click on configure, go to pipeline. In the pipeline, I will write one more stage. Okay, in the pipeline, I will write one more stage. So how will you write that stage? So here you can see if you want to write the next stage. Okay, if you want to write the next stage, again, what you have to do, copy this entire one up to the leaving the last two flower brackets, and then press enter and paste it. Paste the code. And then change the stage name. Let's say I'll give the stage name as a deploy artifacts or Nexus. Anything you can write. Whatever name that you want, you can write. Right. Now we need to write the steps. Okay, now we need to write the steps. Now, before writing the step, what we are doing, we are trying to deploy the artifact. Okay, we are trying to deploy the artifact. Now, in order to deploy the artifact, okay, in order to deploy the artifact, we are going to use a Maven goal, which is known as a deploy. There is a Maven goal called a deploy goal. Now, by executing this goal called deploy, what will happen? The artifact will get deployed. But where it will go and deploy? It should go and deploy into the Nexus repository, which we have created. Okay, into this Nexus repository, it should go and create. It should go and deploy the artifact. But if it has to go to the Nexus repository, is it required to configure the Nexus repository in this stage or not? It is required. So how will you do that? For that, again, I'm using the pipeline syntax, open pipeline syntax in a new tab again, and then go to this particular one, wherever you are opening the pipeline syntax. Or if you want, you can use the old one, which you have already opened. This one is also fine. But I'm not using that. I'm going with the new one. Anything you can use. There won't be any issue. Now, what is the sample step? Sample step is I'm using Maven. Okay, I'm using Maven. So click on sample step and then select with Maven. There will be an option called with Maven. You can see with Maven, provide Maven environment. Select that one. Select that one. And then here you have Maven. So click on this drop down, and whatever name you have given to the Maven, that name it will show here. Okay, Maven 3. What is the JDK name I have configured? JDK 17. So click on JDK 17. That's also done. And then these options are not required. You can just leave all these options and global Maven settings configurations. This is most important. Here you should give it as my global settings. Make sure of it. Give it as my global settings. That's it. Once you give this, you can just generate the pipeline script. So just click on generate pipeline script. That will be done. Okay, my global setting. I'll just repeat once again. So firstly, what I have done, I have selected the sample step. So what is the sample step? With Maven, provide Maven environment. What is the next thing? I have configured Maven. Maven 3 I have selected from the dropdown. And then Java also I have selected, which is JDK 17. And then if you scroll down, global Maven settings config, that one I have selected as my global settings. Make sure of it. Okay. So by using this only, the settings.xml file will get accessed. Okay. If you give this one, then it won't get access. So this one, make sure of giving that. And then scroll down, click on generate a pipeline script. Now you can see you got the pipeline script. This pipeline script entire thing, you can copy and paste it in the Jenkins pipeline where we are creating this one. Now, before I paste it, let me show you the entire pipeline script, which I'll be providing it to you if you want to practice. So you can see the entire pipeline script I have provided here also. Okay, I have provided it here. Now, what I'll do, I'll just replace it here. Okay, I'll just remove this one. Okay, remove this entire line, whatever I'm going to provide in the pipeline script, just remove this line. And whatever you have got from the pipeline script, you got this one, right? Don't copy the entire one. It's not required. So just copy the first line alone. Copy the first line alone. Copy this one, go to the notepad, and then instead of this one, change it to the one that we have generated. Just Control V, delete and Control V. I have done that. Okay, make sure of it. Okay, no need to copy the entire thing because I have already configured that in a proper way here. So when you are using this documentation, only the line you need to copy. Only this line you can copy, and then you can paste it here. Okay, you can paste it here. And you can see all the stages, whatever I have written manually, all these stages are also available here. Okay, so let me change this one also because in my thing, I have configured the different one, the pipeline script or pipeline syntax. So I'm just going to copy this entire one and I'll paste it here so that it will be a reference for you when you are working. Okay, so I'm just going to paste it here. That's done. Now copy the entire pipeline script. I'm just going to copy it. Instead of writing again one more stage, I'm just going to copy it. And then I'm going to select the entire one, delete it, and then paste it. I have just added this stage. So instead of adding, what I have done is I have pasted the entire script. That's it. Right. I have added the stage called deploy artifacts, where it should go and deploy. It should go and deploy into the Nexus repository. In order to do the deployment, which file it is being used? Settings.xml file is being used. You can see that settings.xml file, and it is working with JDK 17 and Maven 3 also. Right. So click on apply and save. That's it. Now what we have to do, we need to build the job. We need to build the job. Currently, how many builds are there? We have 4 builds. Now with 5th build, what should happen? The entire deployment should happen. That is, artifact should go and deploy into the Nexus repository. Let me show you that. So before that, let me click on build now. And you can see the 5th build is getting started. And you can see the stage-wise execution of the 5th build. You can see #5. That means it is 5th build. So I'll just pause this video. Once the stage gets completed, I will unpause and then I'll talk about the things what I want to talk. So here you can see the artifacts has got deployed into the Nexus repository and it took 39 seconds. So the 5th build, whatever we have executed, you can see stage by stage, each deployment has got happened. Now I need to verify whether the jar file has got deployed into the Nexus repository or not. So for that, we need to access the Nexus repository. So let me go to the Nexus repository here. This is the Nexus repository. And here you can see on the top, there is this option called Browse Server Contents. So click on this option, Browse Server Contents. And here you can see in the left pane, there is this option called Browse. So click on Browse. Once Browse is done, and here you can see Maven releases, Maven snapshots. Maven releases and Maven snapshot. First, let me open Maven releases. Okay, let me open Maven releases. Just click on that Maven releases and you can see the 0.0.5. This is the artifact which got generated. What is my project name? WAR file name, database underscore service underscore project. Okay, .jar. That's a jar file name. Now you can see 0.0.5. Now you might have a question, what is this 0.0.5 and how it has come? I'll let you know about that in some time. But before that, let me click on this one, 0.0.5. Let me click on this one. And here you can see the repository, that is Maven releases, format is Maven 2, and you can see the group, name, and version. Okay, 0.0.5 is the version. Again, I'll let you know where this version is coming from. And you can see the artifact has got deployed. Okay, the artifact has got deployed. Like this, we are going to work with the options. Now here, if you click on this plus symbol, you can see a plus symbol here, right? Just click on the plus symbol and you can see the jar file has got deployed. Okay, the jar file has got deployed. Database underscore service underscore project hyphen 0.0.5 dot jar. This is the jar file name which we were trying to access also. Can you see this one? Database underscore service underscore project hyphen 0.0.5 dot jar. Is it the same jar file name? Yes. So this is how you can deploy the artifact. Now this is Maven releases. Now let me click on browse once again. Let me go to Maven snapshots. Click on Maven snapshots and you can see there is no snapshots that are available. I have told that there is a difference between Maven snapshots and Maven releases. If you keep in the pom.xml file, if you keep it as snapshot, the jar file or var file will come and store in the snapshots directory. If you don't keep the snapshots, instead, if you kept release in the pom.xml file, the artifact will go and store in the Maven releases directory. That is why you can see 0.0.5, the jar file. Now, as I was mentioning, what is the 0.0.5? Now, if you go to the repository, that is GitHub repository, and if you open the pom.xml file, here you can see the pom.xml file is there. Open this pom.xml file. I have given the version as 0.0.5. Can you see here? I have given the version as 0.0.5. Based on this version only, okay, based on this version only, the var file has got created. You can see the var file got created based on this 0.0.5 version. So how this 0.0.5 is coming? It is from the pom.xml. Now you can see the jar file name. What is the jar file name? Database underscore service underscore project. Since the version is 0.0.5, that particular version has got created. Now how this name has come? It has come because I have given that name here. You can see what is the name of the project? Database underscore service underscore project. Is it the same name that you are seeing here also? Database underscore service underscore project. So like that, it is going to generate. Okay, like that, it is going to generate. Now let's say I will do some code changes. Okay, I will do some code changes. When I do code changes, automatically the build, I mean, the job should get built. I mean, I will build the job. Once the job is built, automatically a new jar file should go and deploy into this particular one. Currently, how many jar file versions we have? 0.0.5 only we have. Where it is available, if you click on browse, under Maven releases, you have 0.0.5 directory. Why it is coming? Because the version which I am using is 0.0.5 only. Okay. Now I will do one thing. I'll just change this version. Okay. I'll just change this version. Let me show you that. So go to the edit in the GitHub repository only. Just edit that one. Just edit the 0.0.6. If you want, you can edit anything. Whatever you want, you can edit it. But I'm just showing you with this one, 0.0.6. Or if you want, you can give 1.0.0, anything. Whatever the version number you want to give, you can give that. Right. I have changed the code. Now let me commit the code changes in the GitHub repository. Click on commit changes. That's done. Now I have modified the code. Now which version of the project I have? 0.0.6 version I have. Okay, 0.0.6 version I have. Now, since I have 0.0.6 version, I will do the building of job. I have changed the code. Since I have changed the code, I have to do the building of the job one more time. Let me click on build now and see what happens. I am clicking on build now. You can see the sixth build has got started. Okay, you can see the sixth build is getting executed. First stage is successful. Second stage is also successful. Third stage is also successful. And fourth stage, that is the test stage, it is happening. So let it happen. I'm not going to resume. I'm not going to pause this video because I want to show you one important thing here. So test stage is still happening and it is completed now. Now it has gone to the build stage. So now the building is happening. That means jar file will get created. With which name the jar file should get created? 0.0.6. Currently we have 0.0.5 jar file. Now, since I have made the code changes, where I have made the code changes in the GitHub repository with the version as 0.0.6. Now, what should happen? The artifact has got created. I mean, the package has got created with the version called 0.0.6. Now you observe whether deployment, deploy artifacts is happening. Okay, you can see deploy artifacts has happened. Okay, deploy artifacts has happened. Like that, you can do the code changes. When you do the code changes, automatically the new version will come. Let me show you that. let me go to here and then reload the page. Okay, reload the page, and you should be able to see 0.0.6 artifact also. Can you see it here? 0.0.6. Now, if I click on this one, can you see 0.0.6 version of the jar file? Yes. Now, can I access the same jar file here also? Yes. Let me do ls, and you can see 0.0.5 jar file is there. 0.0.6 jar file is also available. Like this, you can do the code changes in the GitHub repository, and then you can build the job, and the build will be successful. Now, in some cases, what will happen is the build may not success. I mean, up to this stage, the build stage, it will be successful. But you will be seeing an error with the deployment to artifact stage. This stage will get failed. Okay, this stage will get failed. The reason why this stage will get failed is in Nexus. In Nexus, by default, there will be one setting. What is that setting is Nexus won't allow to deploy the multiple artifacts without doing some changes in the Nexus repository. I'll tell you that. Let me show you that. You can see once after the build is success, go to the Nexus tab, click on browse, go to Maven releases, and you can see the jar file, right? Now I have made the code changes. So what I have done, I have went to the pom.xml file, and instead of 0.0.5, I have given it as 0.0.6. Just change this version, whatever that is available, change that version to 0.0.6, which I have just done, and commit the changes. I have shown you that also. And then go to the Jenkins dashboard, build the job. Now what will happen? In some scenarios, what will happen is that the job will not be successful. Okay, the job will not be successful. What is the reason for this? The reason is in Nexus, we have to give one permission. Okay, we have to give one permission called when you do the building of job multiple times, same job when you are building multiple times, those many times artifacts should go and store in the Nexus repository. Okay, those many times the artifact should go in the Nexus repository. That configuration sometimes by default, it will be turned off in your Nexus. If it was turned off, the build will get failed for sure. I mean, the deploy to artifact stage, this particular stage will get failed. All these stages will be successful, but this stage alone will get failed. So when this particular stage will get failed, you have to give one permission. Okay, Nexus, we haven't given the permission to store the artifacts when multiple builds are happening. So if you want to store multiple builds, we need to do one settings. How to do that settings? First, go to the Nexus, and there will be click option called settings. Let me show you that. In the top bar, it will be there. I have given in detailed thing of that in the notes. You can see settings icon. Can you see that? Click on the settings icon. In the settings icon, you can see this option called repositories. Okay, repositories. Click on repositories. In the repositories, you can see Maven releases and Maven snapshots. This you remember. Okay, Maven releases and Maven snapshots. Let me show you once again. Go to settings. Okay, go to settings. Let me show you that also in the notes. So go to settings and you can see repositories. In the repositories, okay, click on the repositories, and which one? Maven releases. Let me here, you can see Maven releases. So click on Maven releases, and here you have to go use one setting. I mean, you have to change one setting. What is that setting? Is a deployment policy. Okay, deployment policy. So here what you have to do is you have to select allow redeploy. Okay, allow redeploy. That is the same option I have given. So layout policy, you have to give it as permission, and deployment policy, you have to give it as a allow redeploy. Make sure. Sometimes if you are using the older version of Nexus, it will show you an error. Currently, you can see in my case, it is disable redeploy only, it is there. But still, even though the option, the deployment policy is disable redeploy, I am still able to build the job. The deployment is also successful. Okay, 0.0.6 jar file is created. But if this stage gets failed, you have to do this setting. What is the settings? Go to settings icon, click on the settings icon on top, go to repositories. In the repositories, click on Maven releases. And here, if you scroll down, layout policy, you have to change it to permissive. Okay, select this one, permissive. And then deployment policy, you have to change to allow redeploy. Allow redeploy, and then scroll down, click on save. Click on save, that's it. Once you do this setting successfully, then you can try to build the job one more time. Now, when you build the job one more time, what will happen is the build will get success. Okay, the build will get success. So this is how you can deploy the artifacts into the Nexus repository. Okay, this video is little lengthy since this is a real-time scenario video. It's little lengthy, so but you have to follow each and every step, whatever I have shown you. Make sure to follow the documentation. The same documentation I'm going to give it in the GitHub repository. The GitHub repository link is available in the description of this video. If you want, you can also join the WhatsApp group, which I'll be posting in the description of this video as well. Along with that, if you want me to connect on LinkedIn, you can send a connection request on LinkedIn. The LinkedIn URL is also available in the description of this video. So make sure to follow the entire documentation step-by-step process. If you get any kind of error, you can let me know in the comment box, and I'll try to let you know how to solve it. This is all about this particular video. So in this video, we have seen how to deploy the artifacts by using Jenkins pipeline in a private repository, which is called as Nexus. So you can keep this project in your resume and you can tell that you have worked on you can work on Nexus repository and you have done the deployment of artifacts into the private repository, which is a Nexus. That is the creation of jar file by using the Jenkins pipeline, deploying that jar file into the private repository called Nexus. Thank you.